Welcome to Forensic Friday,
where we examine the intersection of true crime, psychology, and the heart of being human in the middle of it all.
Okay, part two.
Part two!
Janine and I are trying to solve the world. She's drinking water, I'm drinking wine.
Because I have to drink water to solve the world's problems. Literally, if I were to drink wine right now, it's 9 o'clock at night. We have a long day tomorrow. I would giggle and we would get nothing accomplished.
You're not wrong.
I would just giggle and not get anything done.
Okay, I have to tell our friends though really quick. I gave Jay her first puree tonight,
Was she?
and I made the number one mistake,
Oh,
which was giving her a fruit puree, which has sugar in it.
oh no.
And her little body has only had whatever sugar is in her milk.
Yep.
Because she had sugar, because I'm an idiot.
You're not an idiot.
So she's
a good mom.
talking to me while I'm trying to nurse her, and then she bites down, and I literally saw red. It was so painful.
You were like, it's gone. Where is it? Is she choking on it?
I was like,
can you imagine?
and then I'm not yell because she's my baby, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's not her fault. She doesn't know.
I would have yelled. Not
I did say,
but I would have yelled.
I kind of did ish, and I was like, oh my god, like something.
Yes.
And I was like, Grace, and she starts laughing, and I'm like, I can't.
She's like, did you see what I did? It was amazing.
She's like, Mom, because she has sugar in her system now, so she's like on fire. Anyway.
So did her face light up when she got her first bite of like real food?
No. At first it was like, I'll send you the video.
She's like,
at first, so I like put it in her mouth. No, it was just like.
She's like, what am I doing?
She's like, and so then I put a little more in to get her to like try to chomp on it.
Oh.
And they loved it. And so then she was like going for the spoon, and then because it was in the pouch, one of those like little pouches. So she sees the pouch, okay, puts her mouth right on the pouch opening, and I'm like, oh.
She's so smart.
I know.
Smart. She goes,
knew exactly what to do.
Any nipple in a storm, whether it's a pouch.
She's like, that shit's in there, and I need it.
Ooh, let's do that. I love it. So smart.
So then I told Preston, I said, here's our bottle. Have fun.
Enjoy. We're going to record. Because now I've been solving all the problems tonight of the world.
Yes.
That's what we do.
I had to share that with our listeners. That was my exciting news with Grace. She had her first food.
That's so exciting. And then Mac, I just hear thudding outside. I don't know what he's doing. It's 9 o'clock. He should be in bed. Probably still having a Nerf war with Dad. That's probably what's happening.
That's perfect.
Part 2, Chris Watts.
So we left off with what happened, what he did.
Yeah.
Right? We're not going to get back into the gruesome details.
Mm-mm.
Because we don't need to. I think today is really the main focus in my brain is his mindset, his personality, like him as a human. And where do we go from here? With a case like this. It's an old case, but not old case. As we said in the first episode, we could, individuals who are involved are no longer doing interviews. I don't think that's because it's an old case, but I think just because they don't want to keep dredging something up that has already been discussed.
Yeah, and I think the CBI, they did so many interviews with Tammy because of the national interest in this case. I think they're trying to just kind of put it to bed. Not that other people won't talk about it, but just not continuing to focus on the interrogation pieces because I mean, it's a masterclass. If you listen to, I'm so thankful you sent it to me, but the YouTube video
Oh,
that
it's
has the
long.
audio of that second part of their interview, and they get to ask all of the questions that they didn't get to
Yep.
ask in the initial interrogation. It was really enlightening. And
Yep.
Tammy, again, man, I'm just, as a forensic interviewer, I am not law enforcement. So I'm just on the psychology side. But as a
Mhm.
forensic interviewer, I can appreciate the way that she phrases things, the order that she asks things. Um, she's just really, really good at what she does. And
Yep.
you brought that second half. And so tonight, as we're kind of talking through his psychology, which there's been talk about his psychology, but I haven't seen much in the way of debating whether or not he's truly psychopathic, which is something we're going to talk about, and what the drivers are and why it matters. Because I do think it really matters in this case to
Mhm.
get into some of it, because
Yeah.
there were risk factors happening.
Yes. Well, and that's like what they say. So let's just dive in.
Yeah, go for it.
So one of the things that I thought was really interesting that they do about because they asked him. So
Mhm.
let me back. Tammy and I don't remember the other detective's name. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think Tammy was just such a badass. I was focused on her. Anyway, sorry,
Oh yeah.
detective. I think you're so amazing. Um, so they go back, they go to the jail that or the prison he's in. He's no longer in Colorado. Did you catch where he was?
I didn't catch where he is. I feel like Utah, but I probably just made that up. But
It sounds right.
he's in prison.
In prison, and it's not Colorado. And he actually went to a prison. I can't remember what they call it, but he went to a different prison because the one he started in Colorado, his literal life was on the line because of the crimes that he committed.
Oh, he killed
So
his family. They don't tolerate that in prison. Little
it
girls.
was
No.
especially his children.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
So he's actually in prison with people who are like convicted of sexual offenses, gang violence. Gang people tend to leave them alone, I guess, which I was super surprised by.
The higher ups
So,
do.
right. And that's why they switched him.
Well, because they're going to kill Koberger. I mean, they're telling him in the vents, come out, wherever you are. Like,
But that's what they were doing that to Watts.
yeah, I can believe
They
that.
were doing that. So he was in solitary and then they switched him to something, but they were threatening him through the vent.
Yes. Solitary is a crazy maker. Like, one of the things that grieves
Yeah.
me about the prison system is solitary, because it just, nobody comes out of that the same person. They just don't. It's horrible for you. Even a psychopath does not
Hmm.
tolerate solitary. We are just not made, even psychopathic humans are not made to be completely solitary that many hours a day. It's just
Right.
wild, and it amplifies a lot of mental health stuff. And so it is
100%.
probably better for his functioning to be in a different population. But a lot of people say, why does him, like, you know, mob rule,
Mhm.
like throw him into Gen Pop and see what happens. And I understand why people say that reactively,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't want to be in solitary confinement. Jeez.
No. Uh,
In a tiny
So
cell.
he's
Ooh.
yeah. He's in this newer prison, different prison, which has been good for his life, literally.
Hmm.
So Tammy and this other investigator go and see him. They literally go and fly to see him to get some questions answered that but also like the rest of us had, you
Hmm.
know, because it went the way that it did. It just was a little, I think they thought it was easier than it was going to be.
Oh yeah, they didn't expect him to take a plea. And also, he is not a prototypical family annihilator. He's not typical in several important ways. So I actually think, for the CBI in particular, they're like, we just need more information. Like, they wanted to get a finger on the pulse of what was going on.
Yeah. One of the things I thought was interesting, they asked him, and in the Netflix documentary, it shows this a little bit. It's not like direct. they ask like, was there domestic violence before this happened? And there wasn't. Like not
Mm-mm.
there was some power and control dynamics, but not
Mm-mm.
domestic violence.
No, the most likely precursor to femicide is domestic violence. And so
Yeah.
more women are killed by their intimate partners than by anyone else.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so even that alone, when you remove a domestic violence history, it gets very interesting.
Yes. And what's even more interesting is Shanann,
Mm.
out of the two, would have been seen as the predominant, I don't want to say aggressor because she's not aggressive, but like the predominant partner.
Just the dom.
She's dominant.
Hmm.
So even him growing up, and this is some of the things that they asked him, even him growing up, he was not a dominant human. He was very passive.
Hmm.
He says, go with the flow type of person, even when he was a kid. So he was attracted to women, which shows like the person he had was similar. He was attracted to dominant women, right?
Yes. Which feels like mommy issues, I'm not going to lie, which we have talked about on the pod. The mommy
Yeah.
issues are real hard.
Well, his mom was the only one who didn't like Shanann, his sister.
Yeah, but
So
I
like,
think
do that, you know?
the issue is, I think strong sees strong. So they
Yes.
didn't get along because only one of them could be in charge of him. You know what I mean? Like I just
In
don't
charge in general.
in
Yeah,
charge
in
in
charge.
general. Yeah.
And what's interesting because Tammy, in the interview that they fly in to see him for, she said they talk about how great his dad is. I don't know if you remember that part, but they say, oh my God, like Tammy's like, I love your dad. Your dad's a good man. And Chris says, yeah, he's the best. So it's interesting. If you're a dominant man who shows like a lot of control, people don't say that about you.
Well, depending on what perspective they have. Because
Sure.
some of our people in our group will literally tell us, I mean, I run the men's ministry at our church, like the people, I mean, a
Yeah.
narcissistic human can,
Yes.
right, be power and control, but nobody outside of the family knows. But I hear what you're saying. I think in his case, just
Someone
a nice father.
someone like Tammy would have saw right through it.
I would think so.
You know what I mean?
They also were in that interview, and Nat
Mhm.
can attest to this because you do some of these interviews with me and you're learning about them. I don't say what I really think. Sometimes I say things I don't think. And so one
Mhm.
of the things that's interesting, I don't think that's the case with this, but one thing to keep in mind when you're watching that interview, they're
Mhm.
not telling him the truth about what they think about him or even necessarily some of the people in his life. Now, I think the father,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
by all accounts, is pretty kind, but when you read
yeah.
what Tammy says about him, not what she
Mhm.
says to him about him, what she says
Mhm.
to other people about him, those are
Mhm.
two very different things.
Yeah. That's
Uh-huh.
interesting.
Yes.
That's interesting.
So I think
So,
she means some of what she says, just enough to have rapport
uh,
with him. But there are some
yeah.
things she says that it's like,
Oh, oh no, Tammy's phenomenal.
and also Chris is not the most intelligent offender
Oh
by a
my
long shot.
God.
However, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but the male investigator asked a couple of questions, and I had to pause the video and back up.
Yes. Mhm. I
Tammy
know
did
what you're gonna
not
say.
ask any of these, but the male investigator did. Or would
Mhm.
make a comment like, that's what a family man does. Like we would all go out together. And he's like, well, a family man
Yes.
do what I did. And it's like,
Mhm.
was that a bait to see if he would, were they checking consistency in his narrative? Were they trying
Mhm.
to appeal to what does he think about himself as a
Mhm.
father? What were
Mhm.
they digging for? Or was he actually trying to build rapport in a way that just did not land because it wasn't authentic? I don't know.
Mhm.
Tammy's
Mhm.
statements to me are a little more calculated, but they also may have set it up that way. Like you and I do the buddy good cop bad cop routine every single day. So those are pros. I am quite
Yeah.
sure. But it was
Yep.
interesting. He didn't correct any of Tammy's statements, but he did correct the male detective statements several times.
Yes, he did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and even when they were when the male detective was like, like, is it kind of like we all go out because, like we're all gonna together because I can't remember exactly what he said, but it's the, murder suicide
Yes.
situation that
Which
you
Chris
alluded
never
to.
said. Chris never said that. Chris said, I guess take care of myself. I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know. And then
I
the
know.
detective starts putting a narrative to it. And he was like, yeah, well, it wasn't that.
Yeah,
And I'm like, oh, okay.
right, right. Well, he didn't say. I don't know if he said it wasn't that. He said he didn't know what he was thinking,
He said
but he
he didn't
said
know what
to
he was
take
thinking, but he
care of
did say a family
myself.
man doesn't do what I did because that's what he said. Well, you would have
Correct.
killed yourself and
Yep.
gone with your family because that's what a family man does.
Yes.
And
Yes.
he
And
was
the
and
family.
keep like the family together. And Chris was like, yeah, no, that's not what it was.
Yeah, a family
Because
man
Chris
wouldn't do
never
that.
intended to kill himself. I'm gonna tell you right now, he didn't intend to kill himself.
No, no, he would have never killed himself.
No.
So let's get to Chris a little bit.
Yeah.
I told Janine, I have to tell you guys. So I had this whole like thing planned out because I had an opposing opinion to what Janine had said earlier, and then I literally like scratched it.
Well, part of it is you went back like a smart person and
Yeah,
watched footage from the beginning, not just footage from the more recent stuff, and it gives you a fuller picture.
yes. And that's what I did. So I did end up, so I mentioned this earlier. Back at the last job I worked at, this was more when, this was when
Yeah.
this happened. So I had my groups watch the Netflix documentary. And you guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I had them watch it during COVID too. Don't watch it more than once. Like it's dumb.
No.
Watch it more than once. I had 12 groups at that time.
Oh my gosh.
And 6 of them were watching this. And we had to break it up into 2 groups each group. So do the math. Anyway,
That was
I had a,
wild.
yeah, no, I had a nervous breakdown. It was not healthy.
No.
But I watched it this time since then for the first time since then. And it was actually really helpful because it helped me go back to like how he was acting
Hmm.
and then listening to the most recent, it was still a couple of years ago, interview when they went and interviewed him. I was like, okay, this is making more sense. So now I scratched all my notes because I have a different opinion than what I thought before.
Yes.
Anyway, let's get into some of the. Oh, Janine, one of the things that we initially said, you said, well, and I'm going to loosely quote you. You said, well, he's a psychopath, and we're both on the same page, right? And I looked at you and I said, I don't know if I'm on that same page.
Well, you said yes, we said that for sure. But you told me you've got to watch this because now that I've seen what he said, I'm not sure that he's a psychopath. And I said, well, neither of us will know for sure, because there's so many information gaps. Like you would have to omit most of the
Yeah.
tests. So even what we're talking about tonight is not a real evaluation. We're just for pure entertainment purposes talking about traits and the concept of
Yes.
psychopathy as a spectrum. So
So
I'm
it's
sorry that
allegedly that he's a psychopath.
or even that he allegedly has psychopathic traits, the traits of
Yes.
psychopathy. We'll put that
Yes.
disclaimer out there. But yeah, basically I was like, well, yeah, and then, the psychopathic stuff, the traits, and you were kind of like, I don't know. I don't know. And I get
Mm-hmm.
I get why listening to his prison interview, you would
Mm-hmm.
you would second guess that, and then going back to his actual affect at the time, they're very different.
Yes. Yes.
And I did
And
it
that's
opposite. Like I kind of started with the one, then watched your thing, and then went back again to the first, and
yeah.
I was like,
So I think part of it, so I'm going to be, so the reason why I questioned the psychopathic traits, and I think he has traits, 100%. Like, let's just say that.
yes,
But the reason why I went back on it was because you and I have worked with individuals who are 100% on the spectrum or the continuum
yeah, oh yeah,
of psychopathy.
yeah,
I have not seen any of them show up the same way in the sense of when one of the male detectives said something about Shanann, he said something like, well, something about her being domineering or something. And he goes, that doesn't warrant any of my behavior. It doesn't warrant anything that I did. So that was the difference, right? Like,
I have seen that though. Yeah, oh, absolutely. And because of the thing that came up in group last week when we were talking, Nat and I
okay.
talked about accountability last week, and we put a
Hmm.
scale on the board that basically said from denial, which is zero accountability, to 100% accountability. And we were talking about, okay, well, if the DVOMB is expecting full accountability for your behavior, what does that actually look like? Where are we? What are we
Right.
missing? Whatever. And there's one reason why someone could respond the way that Chris is responding in the second interview.
Mm,
And what is it?
compliance?
Compliance is a piece, but mirroring.
Oh, yeah,
He's
yeah, yeah,
getting
yeah.
treatment
Yeah.
in prison. He's so now not only is he in prison,
Right.
he's in
Right.
treatment in prison with worse offenders than him that have been in more trouble than him, that have been in the system, in and out of the system their whole life. They know exactly what to say.
That's true. But Matt, the interview that they did was just a few months. So he said his son been a month old.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter.
Okay.
And if his son would have been a month old, then technically she went missing at 15 weeks. So he'd been in prison 6 months,
Hmm.
something like that, 6 months. They
Hmm.
do a lot of assessment in the beginning. They're testing things out. They put them around
Yeah.
people. Now, I don't think that accounts for all of it. I think that there's room cognitively for people to understand what they've done. And I do think
Yeah.
there's a part of him that actually even feels a portion of that.
Yes.
But I think his most authentic self though was on display immediately after.
Yeah.
Because if you
I would agree.
can kill your child, put them where he
Children.
put them, kill your
Yeah.
children, have them sit in a car with your dead wife, and then hurry on home
Hmm.
and then act like he was acting, pleading, pointing out blankets, all of this stuff. That
Hmm.
is, I mean, even
No,
a
yeah, it's weird.
and even a dissociative disorder wouldn't show up quite like that.
Mm-mm. No, it wouldn't. No.
So, I mean, in this case, that to me points to some of the traits. But I hear
Yeah.
you because I do think that he was, if there's some narcissistic components, which I believe that there are, if
I
there's some
believe that for
narcissist
sure.
components, part of the second interview was impression management. The
Yes.
first interview, he was not smart enough for Tammy. That allegedly, again, I haven't looked at his IQ test, okay, but my my
Right,
take
right.
on the first interview, Tammy just manhandled him in the
Yeah.
interrogation. He
Yeah.
failed the lie detector and he was just done.
Yes.
His goose
Yep.
was cooked. He
She was
started
so
going with
funny.
it. Oh, she was
I
amazing.
I want to be her friend,
Can we do lunch? Can we just take her to lunch?
despite the fact that we could not interview you and your
Oh,
amazingness. We still think you're amazing, and
masterclass.
ever all the work, just those two interviews. I'm sitting here. I'm like, man,
Yes.
game changer. But I think the reason why I started to go to second guess, not second guess, because I agree. I 100% think narcissism.
Hmm.
I think his what's the word? Meek. People saw him as being, reserved and quiet. What's the word I'm thinking of?
Probably
Reserved. What's
meek,
another word?
submissive,
But no, there's
subservient.
a different one. No, I'll think of it.
Yeah.
But along those lines, I think his type of personality, it's like, I don't know if I would agree with the narcissism, like attributes. I would agree with that. I do think we saw his genuine self on those interviews on TV.
Yes.
when he was smirking and smiling about wanting his wife and children to be safe.
Yeah.
The reason I started to second guess some of it is when he started talking about his children in the second interview.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't even talk about it at first. But then they did this whole thing, and then I did another whole like thing on the different tactics that they used. I watched a whole other thing on that, which was really interesting. So they like they went in direct asking about certain things. When it came to his kids, he could answer stuff about Shanann pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
But when it came to his kids, he had a really hard time talking about that. So at first, he said, I can't talk about that. I don't want to talk about that. And he was crying. And it wasn't like he like turned on and off the crying. That was the other thing,
Mm-hmm.
was he was consistently tearful about his kids until I believe it was Tammy asked in a different way that maybe felt softer. But it wasn't like he like tearful, which is what we often see, I think, in psychopathy, to like totally fine. He didn't make that switch, which is what made me question him being, I know he's on the continuum, a full psychopath. Does that make sense?
Well, I think that yes, I think that on so I read this thing earlier because I knew we were going to be talking, and I was hanging with my mom having coffee. Tina,
Love that.
love Tina,
I love Tina.
and I
Sorry,
was
Tina.
explaining the PCLR to her and telling her that we were going to be talking tonight about Chris Watts, whatever. So I start looking up common PCLR results, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think would be higher, Ted Bundy or Dahmer on psychopathy?
Mm. Uh, Bundy.
Yeah, by like 10 points.
Yeah.
By like 10 points. And so one of the things that I think is really important to consider when it comes to someone like Chris is that while I don't think he's the most intelligent offender,
Mhm.
I do think that his the speed with which the world became his stage was fascinating. Not like he
Mhm.
wanted to be on the spot all the time, but he agreed to that interview. He didn't have to do the interview. He made the plea to find the children and his wife, and he wasn't
Mhm.
ducking the cameras or having a family spokesperson because he was so distraught.
Mhm.
The reason I think it's challenging for him to talk about the kids is it's so unbelievably heinous.
Mhm.
So unbelievably heinous. Like we've talked about people who kill children. These were his own babies telling him no.
Mhm. Oh, it's insane.
It's real
It's
bad.
insane.
And one of the things that I was thinking about when I thought about like a Dahmer versus a Bundy versus a whatever, Chris Watts is not a clinical, he's going to be a subclinical psychopath anyway because he doesn't have a ton of criminal history. But that is also one of the weaknesses of the PCLR because some
Mm.
folks who have truly psychopathic traits don't have an extensive criminal history.
Mhm.
So I did a little digging today and I was thinking, what are the motivations for family annihilators? We've talked about this before a little bit, but
Yep.
he's atypical
Mhm.
because he didn't take himself out. Also, I'm going to tell you right now, everyone knows, every single person on the planet knows that there are a million ways to kill yourself. Of all the people on the planet who could think of at least 3 or 4 ways to kill themselves, almost 100% of them are not going to light themselves on fire. They're also not going to
100%.
care if that explosion would hurt anyone else. They just killed their own family and children.
100%.
He's full
100%.
of shit. He was never going to kill himself ever. And this,
Yeah.
I don't know what I was doing. I don't
I think he
know.
was gonna try to burn Shanann.
Agreed. 100%. Because he
Yeah.
couldn't fit her in an oil drum.
Right.
And then it was a shallow grave because it was like, I mean, he's a little indifferent. I mean, that's just the truth.
And left the sheet there.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
yes. So, a couple reasons people might do this, and this will shed light on psychopathy. So, I want you to tuck this away, listeners, and then Nat, I want to know how this informs how you might score the PCLR if we were actually assessing him, which we're not. Number one reason that might have been a factor, because I think it's a combo of things, but number one was just a desire to start a new life. He
Yes,
admitted
absolutely.
to investigators he thought killing his family was the only way to be with his mistress without the complications of divorce, child support, and custody. It was just simpler.
Yep.
I'm sorry, that's psychopathic thinking. That's not even
Yep.
narcissistic thinking. That's psychopathic.
Yep.
A to B. This looks
Well, he
easier.
literally said, I had it in my head that I was going to do that.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
yeah. Yeah.
Avoiding consequences. Rather than face the consequences of ending his marriage and possibly damaging his public image, Watts
Yeah.
chose to commit a crime to avoid personal and financial fallout. So
Yeah.
I think to a lesser degree, I think the first one feels stronger to me based on his affect because he's not Mr. Public Image per se, but there's a tiny bit of that.
Mhm.
So there's your like narcissist possible components, narcissistic traits,
Yeah,
right?
I agree with that.
He told investigators he didn't feel like himself during the murders and described being in a kind of fog or emotional shutdown. So
Mhm.
some people have said this is some kind of deep emotional suppression. So there's like narcissistic traits, lack of empathy, but there was something potentially emotionally going on with him that was deep suppression, almost bordering on dissociation. I don't necessarily play into that, but there are a lot of people online who are like real forceful about that one.
But he's
He was
depressed.
just yeah, he was like having a massive emotional crisis. I don't actually think that's true. I think there's a little the reactivity, the anger, but he was not dissociated in a traumatic trance-like state. I just don't believe that for a minute.
No, I don't think he went through trauma, but I do think he had, I think him, oh, that's interesting because the if it's not like he like cheated and then stopped because of a moral injury. He like continued the cheating and then wanted to leave his family. Okay, I agree. Sorry.
Yes.
I had to
Yes, no,
verbally process that
but do you
out.
see the trickiness with this
Yes.
is because
Yep.
he is a little bit more of a Bundy than a Dahmer. There's
Mm-hmm.
an element of emotional manipulation. So
Yeah.
even the first part, first of all, it's very unthinkable. So we want an explanation for that. But also, then when we look at kind of where it lands, it's like, oh, God, I hope he has some kind of a mental health
Right.
crisis because this is really scary behavior, right? The
Um,
other thing that is a hallmark of psychopathy, and it's actually one of my favorites because some of the stories are there
mhm.
are funny stories about psychopaths that are not about killing people. Okay. So like psychopaths who break out of prison, get a helicopter, line everything up, and then figure out they didn't know where they were gonna go.
Mhm.
They land on an island, build a fire, and the smoke
Mhm.
brings the people right to the psychopaths who did all this work to get out of prison. So
Right.
they're impulsive and they have kind of a desperate thought process. So it was like,
Yeah.
I don't want a divorce. She's pissing me off. She figured it out. She's probably going to divorce me now
Mhm.
because she found out, or
Pissed.
she's pissed
Yep.
at me. I'm different, right? Bam,
Yep.
I got to get out, right?
Yep.
So when we talk about the traits, I thought we could walk through them not one by one, but in groupings.
Mhm.
So when we talk about the PCLR, and we have an episode on it, you can put a link to it when you post on socials that has the PCLR episode, the psychopathy episode.
Mhm.
I have this little thing I sent Nat that I put together, me and Chat GPT, but I did the like these are, these aren't with some
Mhm.
research too. But we have four facets of psychopathy. So these are like subsections of the test. The first one is interpersonal. He
Mhm.
lights up like 50% on this one. Of the four, the
Mhm.
interpersonal one, he lights up for pathological lying. Duh.
Mhm.
Now, we
Mhm.
don't know if that's a lifespan thing, but we certainly know lied to police, media, family, and there's some evidence historically lied about some money things, lied about some other things. So there's definitely some lying there. And then conning manipulation. He
Mhm.
created a false narrative. He blamed Shanann in the beginning, deceived
Mhm.
coworkers, mistress, everything. So you can go ahead and know that those two, boop, he's got those.
So then when he we go to the second interview,
Yes.
he doesn't blame her. Actually, when you say like the mirroring piece, some of the ways he says the things, I don't think he was smart enough to mirror. That makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think he had that big of a shift though. I don't think he had.
Okay.
That's a big shift to go from bringing gasoline to burn your wife in a fire after
Hmm.
you killed your children to, yeah, but she didn't deserve that.
Well,
I
he didn't say
I
he didn't
don't know
deserve
about
it,
that.
but he said more along like when he said a family man can do that, and when he couldn't talk about his kids. Like those are the pieces that I'm like, I think there was a full like he meant it or didn't mean it. I think there was a part of him that actually meant a family man doesn't do what I did. But that's what I did is insane.
I don't know. I'm neutral on it. I would need to first of all sit with him because it's so
Hmm.
interesting. I'm hearing his
Yes.
voice, but I would just love to be in a room with him. Truly, which is
Yes.
why we're weird and we do a job that not many other people would want to do.
Yes.
I would love to know how he's showing up in those spaces. There could have been some growth, at least in the cognitive understanding. The
Hmm.
feeling, I don't know, man.
I don't know though.
The other
Like
thing is he got played in the interrogation. I mean, he got turned
I
inside
know he did.
out. And so all of a
No.
sudden, this man who couldn't put two words together uh, in the first interview, now he's catching little nuances with the detectives. That's interesting to me. Well,
I agree. I agree. I just think how he said some of the things, some of the stuff I was like, dude,
hmm
I caught on to some of that. But some of it I genuinely was thinking like, I don't think it's like 100, he's like a whole new human
no,
from that. But there's some of it that I'm like, I think there's genuine sadness that he did what he did.
maybe, maybe. Here's what I'll say. In our groups, our guys give each other feedback. He got
Hmm.
feedback in jail. The feedback was, we want to kill you because you killed your family and little girls. And he didn't
Yeah.
just get it once or twice. He got it enough that he genuinely would have died and had to get transferred to a different
Not wrong.
prison. So
Yeah, not
there's
wrong.
a lot to be gained in him finding some introspection. Because if he
Right.
doesn't, they're going to murder him in prison. So,
Right.
but I hear you. There's definitely a shift in him. I just don't know
And
what's
it's just
driving it. That's the
different.
question.
No, I know, and I agree with that. It's just different than what you and I hear, right? When we talk to individuals who are probably higher on the psychopathy continuum, I don't hear like what I was saying before. If someone tears up or starts to even like cry, full cry,
Yeah.
they can shift out of it so fast, and that I'm like, yeah, that was all for not for nothing, but it was fake. With him, he genuinely, from what I was seeing, had a hard time shifting in some areas, not every area, but in some areas. I think he's genuinely upset that he killed his kids. I just do. And maybe it's because I'm a new mom and I can't fathom someone not being upset about it. That could be a bias of mine.
hmm
But the way he talks about his kids in this interview, I don't know if you can fake everything he said. If he said like half of the shit, sure. But everything, I'm like, I just don't think you could fake all of that. I think the Shanann stuff, I over her from day one, to be honest with you. The
hmm
second they got married, he was like, what the fuck did I do? To be honest. I mean, his own mom didn't even show up to their
I
wedding.
think he thinks she deserved it. I'm just gonna be honest. I think he was tired of
Fair.
her ass. He was tired of her,
Yeah.
and she was gonna have a baby. Also, that.
Yeah. I
Here's the
hear
thing,
that.
dude. Here's
I
the
hear that.
okay. Now, here's what's so fun about this conversation. Okay, topic's terrible. Conversation.
Garrett might hate us for this episode, but it's fine.
Well, here's why the conversation is good. This is why you need dual basically inter-rater reliability. This is
Yeah.
exactly why, because the conversation that Natalie and I have is the conversations that evaluators should have back and
Hmm.
forth. You need two sets of eyeballs. You need to sit with things. You need to, I see that. I see a little bit of a shift. What's driving the
Hmm.
shift? Why sad about the
Hmm.
daughters, but not this unborn son?
Exactly.
Right.
I
I
think
mean,
he was about unborn son a little bit.
not I mean, I don't, he didn't want to have a baby with her. That's really what triggered this. in many ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, and you and I both know domestic violence and femicide increases when the woman's pregnant.
furthermore, when he started the affair, he acted like he missed them. He was gaslighting her. He acted like he missed them
Oh yeah.
and then
Oh
didn't want
yeah.
to see his children. So
Oh, 100%.
I don't think this was like a moment of insanity. I let my kids go. I think this was more of the I want a new life, just burn it over and start again. And I don't care enough to kill myself too. People who kill themselves in a family annihilation, that is a little bit of a no, we're all done. We're a unit and we're
Right.
done. He was like, y'all are a unit and you're done, which is very
Right.
different and more
Very.
psychopathic.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I agree. This is why I switched my tune.
No, I
But I'm
know.
but this is why I'm
But I
still
hear you.
wrestling with it.
But I hear what you're saying, and what I would say to you, and I would love to know your thoughts on this. The more intense the offenses that we've read, the more easily they
Mhm.
do the shift. The worst offenses that we have seen, the better they are at doing a shift.
I agree and disagree.
Tell me the disagree.
Well, to be honest, Janine, I think part of it is because we're sitting with the people. So I disagree because I see the affect. I see them. We can ask the questions that we have, which is like what motivation in a different type of way to ask it. So I guess I disagree because maybe when we see the shift, when they're sitting right in front of me, I'm more suspicious.
Yes.
That makes sense?
Yes. Because with him, we're
So
seeing a disembodied voice. We're not sitting with him,
correct,
right?
correct,
We're not with this, but we have
correct.
seen individuals even this year that
Yeah,
have fairly sad affect that does not match content. Also,
yeah,
the deeper you go, we just take a hard left and circle back around to something else. But the shift can be there, and there's some learning already happening. It takes a lot of discipline to not teach
yeah.
as
I
we
agree with that. I agree with that. I mean, I have a case I'm literally thinking of in my head, and you probably know the case I'm thinking of.
yeah.
And even that's the case I'm comparing this to. And even that, I'm sitting here thinking, because I've seen such a quick shift in affect from soup, I'm using air quotes, super sad to not, that's that's the thing, right? So with Chris, I
But
think it's because he knows.
it didn't shift in that moment though. So like there was this, oh, I don't want to give too many details. I will like Gary
Oh, I know it's
may have to cut
hard.
some of this out, but what I'm thinking of is in the moment. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If I was just hearing it, I would
Mm-hmm.
think, oh my God, first of all, the interviewer's an asshole because I sound like an asshole when I'm getting details, right?
Yeah, for sure. Same.
But I think anyone watching that would be like, geez, like go
Mm-hmm.
easier. So someone else sitting with that, we have the
Mm-hmm.
luxury of knowing all the things and feeling things back and forth and all of that. But these guys don't have to be good cop, bad cop because they're not working on accountability. They're
Mm-hmm.
just listening to him talk.
Mm-hmm.
If we just let
That's
some of
true.
our guys
That's
talk, they'd work up a bigger head of steam,
oh, that's so true.
right? Because
Yeah.
we have a bookend of like, huh, that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't line up with that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, ooh, I mean, you felt bad, but you put them in an oil drum that was 8 inches weird, right?
Right.
We have to do that in treatment, but they were really just letting him kind of tell his story. Sort of
Yeah, that's
under, it was directed, but not super directed. And so
right.
I see similarities in his responses actually to some of our folks, if
Yeah.
unchallenged.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get you.
Isn't
I
it
get you.
wild though? I love this
I get
conversation
you.
because you're my
Huh.
friend. Like you and I are the ones who do this work all the time. And I really appreciate your perspective always because I'm a tough customer because I've been doing this a long time, but also I miss stuff all the time and really do need help observing things. And so I love when you sit with it and we just kind of really look at it. And there have been people who have snowed me to high heaven and Nat's been
Mhm.
like, "Yeah, I'm not sure about this." And I'm like, "Okay, I always will pay attention to that." So I do think you're
Well, we
picking.
had one of those and we ended up, man, that was a
Yeah.
nightmare.
Oh yeah.
We had one.
We sure
And I
did.
was like, let's kick him out. And you were like, no. And I was like, okay.
Oh
And
yeah,
then
no,
we
totally.
paid for it on the back end.
Yes, that does happen sometimes. And it's
Fun.
interesting because when I look at the traits of even like getting into the charm, superficial charm, grandiose self-worth, he's not a grandiose person at all.
Mhm.
It's actually one of the things that makes him I'm not going to say likable because he's not a likable human, but makes him more acceptable in some
Like
ways.
tolerable. Yeah.
Tolerable is he's not grandiose and he's actually not overly charming,
Right.
right? So he
Hmm.
gets like a 50% on that one. Now,
Hmm.
let's talk affect. So facet 2 is affective. He's
Oh, yeah. No, like
up like
psychopath all the way.
freaking Christmas tree. If
Yeah.
psychopathy was only based on facet 2 affective,
Hmm.
he's a full blown psychopath, but it's not.
Right.
It's not. It's there's balance in the test on purpose to
Hmm.
not over identify this stuff. And I'm telling you, even this man who did this horrific stuff, I am not his evaluator. I don't have a file. I don't have all his history. This is just like a spitballing thing. My guess, if I had to wager, would be that he would be subclinical for psychopathy because I don't have enough of the other pieces. But the
Hmm.
traits that are there are so loud and so dangerous.
Yep.
So dangerous. Lifestyles facet 3, that's like need for stimulation, parasitic lifestyle life, a lack of realistic goals,
Hmm.
impulsivity, irresponsibility. He's a yellow flag on this
Yeah.
stuff. He's not, and then he does not have parasitic lifestyle. He had a
Mm-mm.
stable job. He was not financially dependent on her. However, she was fairly successful and he was kind of forced into
To be
her
that. Yeah.
her world with some of that stuff, and I don't think that
Yeah.
was easy for him, but he's not parasitic.
No, he's not.
A parasitic human would have been like, yeah, baby, go do your thrive thing and I'm going to drive the car you're earning.
Exactly.
That
And
was
make more.
not this.
Yeah. And they actually might have been more engaged and involved in her videos.
Yes, yes,
So,
I would
yeah.
agree with that totally. Four is anti.
You can tell he's not in it. He's like,
No,
this sucks.
no, I don't think, and that's again the grandiosity. I don't think he was like, I'm the shit. I don't think that was it. I think he just wanted a different life and thought, I'll just turn a page. And that's a callous, unemotional trait, which is not great. And then antisocial facet 4, I mean, not really. He has poor behavioral controls in the offense.
Yeah, but not before that.
Not that we know of, right? I mean, I'm not looking at all the stuff. Criminal
He
versatility, not a ton of that I know of.
he had no criminal history.
Yes.
Um, he was very involved. He was not like a very outwardly spoken person. So when he like had some public speaking stuff, it wasn't a regular thing for him, and he was super nervous about it.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
actually think his narcissistic traits, to be honest with you, came out when he lost his weight. And that there's there's a lot of studies that talk about that. So even if, like, for lack of better terminology, those traits were probably more dormant until he lost his weight and then he gained some self-confidence and then those narcissistic traits came out.
Yes. And he probably felt really damaged by her at that point because instead of recognizing the change in him, he probably
Hmm.
felt like, you don't let me be me. You've never let
Hmm.
me be me. I
Hmm.
got better in spite of you. Right.
Well, he got physically healthier. So
Mhm.
to him, he's like, you've never encouraged this. I did this on my own,
Yeah.
and here we are, you know?
Yes. Two of the other traits are promiscuous sexual behavior. We don't have any proof of that except the affair. So some might argue, yeah, it's promiscuous to have sex with someone while your wife, just got pregnant and whatever.
For that. he didn't.
No, and promiscuous would really, and Nat's had the unfortunate experience of being in the room when I'm interviewing someone about all the sex things. Um, Promiscuous sexual behavior, that is not this. Having an affair is not promiscuous sexual behavior. And he doesn't have many short-term marital relationships either. He was married for a very long time. So,
Yeah. And no like super short relationships. He was very like honestly, this was part of why Tammy and the other detective were genuinely super surprised with how this all went because he doesn't have the makeup of what you and I, and also detectives like them usually see,
yes.
right?
Yes. It is really sick and illuminating, I would say, that he talked so much about how with Shanann, he had this thing already in his mind and he had no control. That's lack of responsibility. But then about Nicole, his affair partner, I felt more in control with her, like I could be myself.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those are weird control statements. They make sense, but it's a
Mm-hmm.
lack of responsibility, really, in
Mm-hmm.
both cases,
Mm-hmm.
right? He could have just taken responsibility for himself, his relationship, and ended the
Mm-hmm.
marriage. The other thing is the public plea. We've talked about this, but it's so gross because
Mm-hmm.
acting calm, trying to look concerned when you already know where the bodies are is nuts. Think
Insane.
about that. Like
Insane.
he's
Not
calm,
even
trying to
knowing where the
act
bodies are,
concerned.
knowing what you did.
Yes.
In
I'm working
Mhm.
on a local case. I'm going to do it, I don't know, in a couple weeks. And someone came upon the scene, who was involved, and they just like collapse in this very dramatic display of grief and whatever. This dude is sitting there trying to act concerned. He was trying to drum up concern. He
No,
actually
I
was calm and
he
low key.
smiled at the very end.
I know it's insane.
No, it's nuts. Hmm.
Couple hot takes from people who aren't us. Candace DeLong, an FBI profiler who was on Dr. Phil, which my parents don't even watch Dr. Phil anymore, which I appreciate. I'm not a Dr. Phil fan, whatever, allegedly.
Never was. Yeah, I never was.
It's just not a thing that I'm into. But my parents like loved Dr. Phil for a long time, and I was like, I can't do it. La la la. They'd call me and want to know what I thought about everything, and I'm like, I don't do Dr. Phil.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, Candace DeLong, is an FBI profiler and called him a psychopathic, malignant narcissist.
Mm-hmm.
Other psychologists, pop psychologists, on the news and stuff, basically said he may be psychopathic because of that calmness, lack of remorse. But then there's also been some books written and some articles written that basically say narcissism with psychopathic traits, but not a classic psychopath.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the things that I think we can really see here is just his history of stability in what appears to be a pro-social lifestyle for the most part is the thing that keeps him from having the full psychopathy profile as far as we know with the
Yeah.
information that we have. But he definitely has traits. He has traits.
100%. He does have traits for sure.
He's not a super classic narcissist either, honestly. Like you said, I actually really like what you said, Nat, that he went through this change that brought out some of this in him, but he's not a super classic narcissist either in terms of grandiosity and needing a ton of attention.
No, no, he's not. Well, and here's the thing about narcissism that you and I both know is narcissistic individuals at their core are wildly insecure humans,
Oh, absolutely.
right? And so with layers upon layers built on top of them to like build them up
Yes.
falsely, false things to build them up. And so when I think of Chris Watts, he, I'm not, he was heavier than he was when all this,
Yeah.
that was part of it. I think he was genuinely insecure with himself.
Mm-hmm.
I do think he was quieter because of security.
Mm-hmm.
And then he lost this weight
Mm-hmm.
and something shifted in him. Right. And I hear about this all the time. Being being someone who's been in the bodybuilding world for a very short period of my life, you hear about this all the time where they make this shift. You go from like being, someone quote unquote that you don't feel like you are to getting physically bigger,
Mm-hmm.
and then this other part of you shows up. It's wild. Like I've seen it. I've seen it.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's part of what happened with him. I think there was part of this that was German. I think he genuinely thought he was a good guy. Is why he felt like he was married, he could be married and he could have kids.
Mm.
Right. Like that doesn't make you good or bad. But he was like, I'm gonna end up with someone because I have these traits about me that are both husband material and dad material. Okay. Moves into that space, still insecure, loses this weight, gains some muscle, and this chick who's like this yoga, you know, a little risque type of human starts to pay attention, and then some of these traits start to come out that were dormant, just showing up for him. So there is maybe, and I'm like verbally processing, which isn't always a good thing. I actually kind of think right now that he might have surprised himself with how he thought of himself. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, he may have never settled into his new body fully. And also, I'm going to make two totally uneducated guess. I've literally no reason to guess this, but just a shot in the dark, like,
Do it.
if I was playing
Oh,
darts with
sure.
psychological theories, I'm going to guess that mom was critical and demanding,
Absolutely.
and probably made comments about his weight. I'm going to guess that Shanann did also, and rode him about doing the things with Thrive.
I disagree with you.
Didn't she want him wearing the patches and all the shit that she was doing?
I don't think she commented on his weight because I think mom probably was really critical. I think sister might have been critical, to be
Mm.
honest.
Mm-hmm.
I think Shanann for him, for strong women, was actually a breath of fresh air,
Because,
which is, I don't think she was critical on his physical appearance. I think she genuinely was actually attracted to him based on things she said in some of the like random videos she had.
also, and
I
I
think
haven't
it
looked
was,
at those as much.
yeah, I think it was less about his physical appearance and more about him being a more, not more dominant than her, could have handled someone who's more dominant than her, let's be real. But I
Oh,
think
yeah.
she wanted him to be more assertive. And that's probably where she wrote him more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, and then, so then I'm thinking if he was in this different body most of his life,
Mm-hmm.
feeling like he couldn't say what he wanted, feeling whatever he was feeling, with a little bit of
Insecure.
like
Insecure.
a dimmed emotional capacity.
Yeah.
When he killed his family, he also killed that self
Yes.
in a weird way. So then
His
this new
old self.
fresh start is I'm this new person, new body,
Yeah.
new life. And if I have a diminished ability to have empathy, then the thing that makes sense is just to get rid of your family.
Yes. Well, and if you think about their lifestyle,
Mm-hmm.
Shanann was much more, and I'm going to try to figure out how to say this in the best way that I can. Shanann was much more of she was comfortable. She was comfortable with herself,
Oh, yeah.
comfortable with
Confident.
general, confident. She was comfortable with who she was. Nikki, just based on like their physical appearance alone,
Yeah.
Nikki was single. She
Mm-hmm.
was in her 30s, I think,
Mm-hmm.
early 30s,
No kids, right?
no kids,
Mm-hmm.
very active. So it's a very different, like having a child, I'm going to just say for me, having a child has shifted my appreciation for my body in such a different way. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Pre-child, pre-child Natalie, very different than post-child Natalie.
Yeah.
Okay. I look at Shanann and she's confident and comfortable with who she is. Okay.
She's
I
like,
look
I
at
made these
Nikki.
babies and I don't always love maybe every part of how I look or what I'm doing, but I like me and you're right, it's an appreciation.
Right. And with Nikki, I think she was a single, no kiddo woman.
Mhm.
And it's just a different mindset. It just really is.
Yeah.
And I think he saw that and he saw her body type and he saw her lifestyle, very active. There like a lot of her pictures are of her doing yoga and active things.
Hmm.
And him creating this new version of him, he's like, I like that more,
Yes.
and went for that.
Yeah.
And then also, this is where narcissistic, also psychopathic stuff that came to me. She made him, this is what drives me freaking crazy about stuff like that. She made him, quote unquote, feel better about himself.
Yeah, that's not.
I know it's so gross. It's so gross.
uh, well, and also, when you're talking about the single woman thing, no kids, the
Mhm.
reason that narcissistic men, even more than psychopathic men, to be honest, struggle when
Mhm.
kids are involved is they don't have the attention, the time, the space, everything else. And we've seen before, even if he was in Shanann's shadow or controlled or whatever else, he had her attention. And he did probably like that at some point in time. And,
Yep.
you know, a third baby too, like he was gonna be now number 4 on the list in service of his wife and children, and he just didn't want to do that. I don't think he wanted to do that at all. He said he didn't want to do that. He said that.
Yep.
Bring us home with some heart, Nat.
The heart for me in all this was, and mentioned a little bit of this in the first episode. It's first of all awareness, right? Like it, we're in October. This is Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Yes, it is.
So we're recording this on October 1st. This will come out later in October. But
Yes.
the biggest piece of this is, for me at least, I look at the impact that he had on his family. It will start there. Awful, right? I can't even imagine the thing that he did. The impact on their community
Mm,
was also terrible. I mean, there are interviews that I watched from neighbors, as I mentioned in our preview episode. There's some interviews with the neighbor that he stayed with, and they are genuinely heartbroken
mm,
about what happened, and the fact that they were like basically snowed by him.
mm,
So the heart piece for me is, as someone who works in the field and in this type of these types of offenses, I can't sit there and say like, I hope people like can't build awareness, because that's between them and their conscience, I guess.
mhm,
But it's, how do you support each other? How do you create awareness around these things? The crappy thing with Chris is there weren't a lot of big red flags like there normally are, which is why the detectives went back and questioned him. They were like, dude, like none of this really makes a ton of sense.
Well, I also think
Um,
this is part of why this case tortured you.
what
So,
do you mean?
well, I think this case, as people who work in the field, part of the heart of it for us is
Mhm.
we are getting better and better and better at assessing risk. We are
Mhm.
terrible at predicting actual violence, really.
Correct.
And the
Yep.
reason is because you can have every risk factor and never do anything. You can have no risk factors and do something really heinous.
Yeah.
We, as humans, we have free will to do whatever we choose to do. And it's not a
Mhm.
perfect science. And this is the kind of stuff that keeps me up. I think one of
Mhm.
he is the epitome of that. This was
Yeah.
not something that Shanann could have predicted, I don't believe. And I don't think any
Or
would have.
anyone else, like
Mm-mm.
family, friends, no one.
I don't think
People
anyone
saw
could
her.
have seen this coming.
Well, and here's the other piece that I've mentioned to you. There was so much victim blaming in this case that it was unbelievable. And there was victim blaming not because she deserved any of it. No one deserves any of this ever, ever, ever.
Mm-mm.
There was victim blaming because people saw her as the quote unquote more aggressive spouse of the two of them. And so they said, well, she drove him to do this. First of all, get a life if you're
That's
saying
also
that.
misogyny in
It
action.
is.
Yeah.
It is. And check yourself because no one ever deserves anything like
No.
this. No one deserves to be abused by anybody in their life.
And there's zero
So
evidence that she's physically abusive to this man to the degree that he
she
needed
wasn't.
to
I
protect
genuinely
himself
believe
or
that she
anything.
wasn't.
No.
Correct. I genuinely believe that she wasn't. That's not allegedly. I just don't think she was. I think she had a dominant personality. I think he was passive as shit. That was the biggest risk factor for him is it was his insecurities.
Yes.
Number one risk factor for him. So my heart in this is
Mm.
truthfully, Janine, check for our listeners. If you are sitting there, and I don't think most of our listeners are, to be honest, we have a lot of really amazing listeners and forensic friends.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're one of those that has historically maybe had this case and said, well, she was this, and that, no, check that.
Yes.
Go back to the drawing table within your own self and assess how do we actually view people, you know?
Well,
No one deserves that.
I love that. I think I agree with that so much, Natalie. And also I can relate to being someone who can be like a grievance collector, never violent, never
Sure,
would be
sure.
violent, but just the kind of person who keeps trying to do the right thing, but then I'm also like have a list in my drawer. I had to work
Mhm.
really hard on this. And I think that there's a million reasons why sometimes people are this way. If we're people pleasers, if we've had dominant people in our life, if we've whatever. I don't even know all the reasons for myself. I just know that it was a way that I lived for a long time. And
Mhm.
I would say if you are someone who's a people pleaser or you're passive,
Mhm.
really examine where your resentment is because I think sometimes we get into this martyry place where it's like, but I do all the things for everybody. And I mean, this can pop up for me on a moment's notice. Natalie knows this is one of my dearest friends. I
Mhm.
really have to wrestle it. I have to wrestle it down. And part of how I do it is I take care of myself. I work on my boundaries all the time. I have friends who aren't afraid to shoot me straight. I have family who's not afraid to shoot me straight. And I love those people enough to listen. But what I've had to learn to do is actually be a little bit more assertive about what I need and how things affect me. And that is really hard for me to do,
Yeah.
actually, at the end of the day. And I think it is not Shanann's fault that she
Mm.
didn't know what Chris Watts needed because Chris Watts didn't fucking tell her and then he killed her. So this in no way explains something that Chris needed and didn't get. It's more, I think, if there's even a micro lesson here, it's that if we don't address things, they build.
Yep.
So if
Yes.
you're not a psychopath, which if Chris Watts is not a full bore psychopath, most likely, I'm gonna guess most
Right.
of us are not.
Right.
Regardless, you're more likely to behave outside of your character if you are holding on to
Absolutely.
resentment.
One of the things that I always tell either my groups or couples, most of the time, well, honestly, both. I was going to say sometimes individuals, but most of the time it's group couples.
Hmm.
No passive human or passive communicator stays passive. They
Hmm.
always shift. A passive communicator always shifts into something different. So if you feel like that's you, just be mindful. Like, think about it for you. What are the things that you need to put in place to start advocating for yourself and communicating?
Hmm. Yes,
So, my two
absolutely.
cents.
Oh, I love it, Nat. I love it. Good job, friend.
Y'all, I avoided this for like a year.
Well, it's a lot. It's a lot. Oh,
Big
and the
case.
reason I think it haunted you is because you had such a difficult case right at the beginning of COVID. So I think your brain was trying to figure things out. So here comes
You're
another
not wrong.
inexplicable case, and I think your brain wanted to figure it out desperately because it's
Well,
really
yeah.
scary when we can't.
Yeah, no, that was
And then
awful.
we're just, we're at home all day thinking terrible things. It's great watching things and
Yeah.
thinking scary things,
Yeah. Yeah. And just for our listeners, I won't obviously go into any detail about it, but I will just say, like, Janine knew this human too. And when we are taken by surprise as forensic therapists, it's a really big deal. I'll just say that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, my
So,
friend, we will see y'all next week. As always,
bye, forensic friends.
I'm Janine.
And I'm Nat.
And as always, thanks for listening and join us next week for more Crime, Psychology, and Heart.